Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today, I would like to talk about Prequel Adventure. If you're not familiar with Prequel Adventure, it is the story of a Khajiit in Oblivion, essentially, or the setting of Cyrodiil at some point before Oblivion takes place, more or less. So it's Oblivion-style Cyrodiil, which is important to note because originally, if you follow the lore of that game, Cyrodiil was supposed to be covered in jungle. But then I think that when the game developers got to making their game set in Cyrodiil, they ran into a problem in that a jungle would require like a lot of different terrain and stuff like that. It would have required a lot of effort, and the game system they were releasing on didn't have the power to actually like do all that. So they just turned it into like, you know, rolling plains and forest, and there were wolves and stuff like that. Many people were upset, and then that was kind of boring compared to what they promised, but there you go. So yes, it's about this Khajiit, and she is not good at things, and she is very sad. The other title for this is Making a Cat Cry: The Adventure. Anyway, Prequel Adventure. I thought I would talk about it because not too long ago, Kaz, the guy who does Prequel Adventure, had a GIF contest, a long GIF contest, and I used this as an excuse to practice with Toon Boom a little bit. I got a little bit familiar with the bone tools because he put these assets out there and he said you may only use these assets, and so what I did is I just imported the assets as different drawings that I could swap between them, and then put bones in like the arms and stuff like that, so that when so I could move the character's arms around and have them do stuff with their arms. The contest was for like, I think, funniest based on Skyrim logic, or not Skyrim, funniest based on video game logic, Bethesda logic, best action scene, and then a third one, I can't remember what it was, but none of them were like best animation or like best overall or anything like that, so I didn't really like go for a category. I was just like, okay, yeah, so the thing happens, I don't know, and I animate this thing, and I get a little bit more familiar with Toon Boom. Speaking of, if you haven't seen, we did that Stranger Things short. Did not get very many hits for an animation. Actually, surprisingly, usually most animations will get like 10,000 hits right off the bat. But this one, not very many. I guess Stranger Things, not as popular of an animation idea. But yeah, I got some experience with that. Figured out some things to do, some things not to do. Learned some crucial mistakes. TRY came in and helped me out. Gave me a cutter tool template, which will help me out with actually animating like shoulders and things like that. We've been trying to figure out how exactly to reverse engineer that, what exactly that TRY did to make this tool work. It is not a standard tool. It's a thing that you make. It's like a group. Toon Boom is really neat. It's been really good software so far. Like, I'm really impressed with it compared to working in Flash. It's much more complex software, so it's taken a lot more learning. The tutorials have been just like terrible for the most part. I know this doesn't have anything to do with Prequel, but anyway, it's irrelevant anyway as far as like the channel, what's going on in the channel. I've been pretty busy. Been busy lately, trying to keep up with everything. I've been doing about 15 seconds of animation en masse every day. Been doing the streams, and unfortunately, I haven't had a lot of time for other things. But we're working on other stuff though. There's going to be a lot coming up soon. Maybe not in this month, but next month for sure. We're going to have like a lot of new content. Basically, because this transition over to Toon Boom has been really rough. There's been a lot of like how do I put it? It's like walking in gravel without shoes on, It's like every time you take a step forward, like you get another feet full of rocks, and just like, oh no, oh no. But pretty soon, as I'm getting used to it, I'm starting to get used to, my feet are toughening up, and I'm getting used to like what not to do, what to do, how to walk on the rocks and not get my feet all stabbed to death. So yes. Anyway, though, Prequel, yeah, based in Cyrodiil, before the events of Khajiit. And before the events of the events of the hero of Khajiit, or whatever it is, whatever that era is called, when Martin was the important character and the player was like a supporting character who screwed around and did like fetch quests for the main character. Oblivion irritated me. I really didn't like the way that they set it up because they really didn't make you feel like a hero very well. Oblivion was kind of funny because it was a transition between like Morrowind and Skyrim. And what I mean by that is like Morrowind had a really interesting theme and a really interesting sort of story. It focused around you kind of being like the reincarnation of this hero, and your tale was to go forward and meet this prophecy, and there were all these kinds of like horrible things and this magical stuff going on and all these like preordained deal, and it really kind of revolved around you. I mean, like, you were the center of the universe in this, and so the story was good and the setting was really neat and there was all kinds of fantastical elements to this. But then you get into Oblivion and they drop like a ton of fantastic elements and they settle for more like, wolves, generic wolves, and there's, some trolls and stuff like that. And a lot of people still really liked Oblivion. I played it. I actually was not taken with the game right away. I kind of, I found it a little bit dull much of the time. Like, I was super disappointing because I remember being hyped up for it before I played it, and then I started playing it, and I was like, man, like, ooh, mud crabs. Okay. And here's a creek, and like, here's some trees, and I don't know, here's a village. Oh, and all the guards know whenever I've done something wrong. Like, they know from 1,000 yards away. Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah. Anyway, though, so Prequel takes place in this time, in this sort of setting, this Oblivion time. And the reason I say it was a transition is because as they got away from story and they got away from the setting being interesting, and they sort of streamlined some of the mechanics so it was easier to pick up the game and play with it. And then Skyrim, you find they streamlined it even further. Like in Oblivion, you could actually screw yourself up because you could choose your stats and you could choose what stats would level you up. And if you chose poorly, like if you tried to make a custom guy and you didn't know what you were doing, then you could really mess up your character, because you would just be like, oh, well, I have these stats as my core thing. And then you would find out that like certain stats, like I tried to be my idea was that I was going to be like a highwayman, like I was going to run into people and then I was going to like kill them and take all their money. And then it turned out that Oblivion was set up to where like the guards were psychic, and if you attack somebody and they didn't die in one hit, then the guards were immediately alerted. It didn't matter if you killed a person, like it didn't matter if there was nobody else around. If you hit a person and they did not die, the guards knew. So, like my first thing was I was like, oh, I'm going to be a bandit. I'm going to go out and I'm going to attack, like, people. So I'd, like, find somebody in a back alley. I would rapidly kill them before they could even, like, run and go and get help. And then I would get arrested. And I would have to pay $1,000 or like 1,000 gold or stay in jail or whatever. So yeah, like the game, like if you didn't know the game, if you didn't know what the game was going to do, then it would screw you because it wasn't that streamlined. And then Skyrim got even more streamlined. And people complain about this. They don't like how streamlined the game is getting. But I think that what Bethesda is trying to trend to is to not have such an interesting, in-depth world. I mean, like, all you saw were Draugrs in Skyrim, like, just Draugr after Draugr. But the gameplay was a lot more addictive. And, I mean, like, the story was not very... Like, Alduin was a huge letdown. But the gameplay just was really addictive. Like, you leveled up all the time. You were always getting stronger, and every time you got stronger, you've I don't know. Like, you got little rewards here and there, so they got that Skinner box thing going. They tightened that up a lot. So I mean, for better or worse, whether or not you love that, that's I see Oblivion as the transition, and this is important because Prequel is set in the sort of Oblivion deal, and that means that he is using some of the logic from that particular game. I don't know if he's gonna apply any Skyrim logic or not, but he does use the Oblivion logic quite a bit. One of the things that he does that I really enjoy is he has a guard that shows up, and the guard is just insane because the guards in Oblivion were like notoriously insane. Like nobody ever disagreed. Like you'd steal an apple and they would run up and they'd be like, "Stop right there, criminal scum! Pay the fine or pay with your life." And so Kaz has one of these characters, and it turns out that he's actually really endearing because when you actually play a role in that setting, when you take all the craziness, but then you turn it into sort of an interactive role-playing game, which is what Prequel is, then you can talk to guards like that, and you can be like, "Oh, guard, like, when's your patrol?" And he'll be like, "Oh, from precisely these times." And in a video game, it's really boring to, like, walk alongside a guard and just be like, "Okay, I'm on patrol with the guard, and, if any wolves run up, the guard is, like, 10 levels above me, and we'll kill the wolf," or whatever. But in a comic or a role-playing game, like the guy who's running the whole thing can just be like, "Okay, and you're walking, and you get to your destination after, sticking with the guard." And of course you can talk to the guard, and the guard doesn't just have, like, a series of, like, "Where is the inn?" Like, "Where is the blacksmith?" or anything like that. You can talk to him and be like, "So what got you into guarding?" And he'll be like, my hatred for criminal scum got me into guarding. I have to guard against the criminal scum." And there's little jokes about the Levitation Act and things like that. there was one that I thought was funny where he was just like, he was super mad about the idea that anything should like be more than 20 feet off the ground because the Levitation Act forbade that. Yeah. But anyway, though, it starts off and it's pretty straightforward. It works a lot like Homestuck, and as it gets going, it gets more and more ambitious, and this leads to sort of some great stuff, but also the drawback that every single update came later and later. And so if you still have really high hopes that Kaz is going to update again, he has looked the internet in the eye and he has promised everybody he's going to update again. You can see on his site he's like, I'm doing it, I'm working, and he gives these updates like I'm working. So he insists that it's going to be a really big update. And throughout his thing, he does these various little mini games and things like that. Like there's one where Katia chases a guy. Katia is the name of the main character. I'm sorry, I'm kind of all over the place with this. Katia chases a guy down, and so you have to, like, you play this game and you run after this guy and you jump over obstacles and duck underneath things and all kinds of other cool stuff. He's got another one where you have to solve this peg game, and there's a lot of humor in that. I actually didn't solve the peg game. I gave up on it, which is kind of funny. Like Katia is she's this really sad, beaten down character. She has these awful nightmares, except for when she drinks. And so she's at a very young age, she develops this drinking problem because it keeps the nightmares away. But when she has too much to drink, she's kind of a lightweight. She gets a little crazy, and she continually wakes up in like strange people's houses. And she has this thing that she does with a pineapple and a yo-yo. And you never find out what the pineapple and yo-yo trick is, but apparently it's really embarrassing, and a lot of people find it very, very memorable. And so Katia kind of sleeps around, and that's sort of how she survives. She's a little street urchin that makes her money through sex, and she's tired of doing that. So the reason she comes to Cyrodiil is she's trying to change her reputation. She wants to start all over and be somebody important. So she wants to go on adventures. She wants to become an adventurer. And it turns out that she sucks at adventuring because having sex all the time doesn't really build you up very well for, like, you know, the rough and tumble life of adventuring. I mean, she's maybe used to being kicked around, but this just makes her that much more prone to think that nothing's going to go her way. So later on, though, it turns out that she has some magical potential that she didn't realize that she had before. So she goes and she talks to the wizards, and they're like, oh yes, you know, with training you might be able to do well. And she just gets her ass kicked left and right along the way, because she doesn't actually know anything, and nobody really does train her. Nobody really throws Katia a bone at any point. And so you get people, and this is kind of adorable, is you get some people that just want to like punish Katia because they think it's funny whenever she's suffering. And then you get people that want to like help her out, and so they like write all these helpful comments and things like that, and they're like, hang in there, you're really smart, you're really pretty. And then you get like just the outright lewd things like, hang in there, you have a nice ass. And it's like, oh, all right, great. This doesn't do me a lot of good, but thanks. Yeah, there's like a section that he's got where you get to go explore Khajiit that I thought was pretty cool. Where once you get into Khajiit, it's like an RPG Maker sort of thing where you get to run around the town, you get to talk to all these little people. There's a mini game where you get to you get on like a stripper pole, and I think you compete with like another dancer or something like that. Like he eggs you on into it. He's like, oh, you know, you should strut your stuff. And so she gets on there and she does this stripper pole dance thing. Yeah, and so like she's got these skills. Like she's obviously got these skills of seduction, and it's kind of funny because she's so miserable and she wants to be someone else, and it's really cute to watch her try to be someone else. And everyone has all these different conflicting ideas of how to like help her get to where she wants to be. I actually haven't really sent any requests in or anything like that. I got in it way too late. I would not have had an opportunity to get in anything anyway. But I've been liking where the whole thing has gone. Unfortunately, it's been a year since the last update. I will be mildly amused if Kaz updates like in October, because then it will have officially been a year since the last update. But I think that he was in college. I can't remember what he said that he was in college for. But his courses are kind of done, and so now he's got a little bit more free time. So when he's not working, I suppose he's able to work on Prequel. Prequel itself, I kind of wonder, like, Bethesda generally tends to be pretty relaxed about their intellectual property. So on the front of copyright, I'm not sure where it would fall, because there is a lot of commentary on the whole game in general. Like, I mean, like, Katia is constantly running into things that are silly about the universe, like, over and over. Like, there's one scene where she runs into these mud crabs, and, like, they do these little analyses on mud crabs, and I really like Kaz's take on the monsters. Like mud crabs can only feel hatred. Like mud crabs have one emotion, and that's all that they just feel hate for all living things. Mud crabs are assholes, and of course in Fallout, in Fallout as well, in all the Bethesda games, this is always true. Like, you make a loud noise, you make an explosion, you fire a gun, like, the animals don't turn around and run like a normal animal would. Like, a deer would run the other direction. But not anything in Fallout, not in a Bethesda game. Like, you make a loud noise, you make an explosion in a Bethesda game, everything for miles turns and runs directly towards the explosion. I don't know what it is. Like, maybe they assume something there must be wounded. They're like, oh, an explosion. Something must have died. And they're all just going to descend on it and, like, tear that thing apart. Or if they just know that surely a human made this thing. Like, a human! I am going to eat that human! Like, and they just have no regard for, like, why did the human make an explosion noise? Could they make more? They don't care. They don't care. Some of the things, I guess it makes sense. Like, the super mutants are ultra aggressive, so I guess that would be fine, you know, from Fallout. But in Bethesda, like, maybe trolls? Like, maybe you could say, like, trolls are super aggressive? Undead, surely. I mean, like, the Draugrs and the undead always running towards you. Like, what do they fear about death? Of course they're gonna run at you. But, like, mud crabs. Why do mud crabs run directly towards things that are clearly dangerous to them? Like, their first instinct should really be to run away. Like, a lot of things should really just run away. I was actually surprised when I played Skyrim, and they had deer and elk, and the deer and elk didn't, like, run towards you to attack you at all times. Like, that was such a change in the way that Bethesda normally operates with their like, monster creatures. I was just like, oh, they run away from me? Wow. Like, and then I was super disappointed when I found out there really wasn't that much reward for chasing them down. I mean, you got leather out of it, so it was still worth it, but you know, this is like, I thought for sure, like, I don't know, they're like enemies that run away from you. Like, enemies that run to you drop, like, gold and stuff like that, so enemies that run away must have stuff. I don't know what they have. Like, deer jewels or something like that. They keep their eyes are made out of diamond? I don't know. Expected something. I don't know what I expected, but, like, Bethesda, they run away. Like, oh my god, that must be important. Yeah. Yeah, he also kind of pokes fun at the various guilds and things like that, and the weird stiffness of the characters. Like, he'll walk in and he'll talk to people, and so there's like people that walk around like this, like they have their hands up in like awkward stiff positions, and they all look like they have these weird like smiles plastered on their faces at all times. Like, yeah, I don't know. The art style is very cute too. There's a fair amount of sex humor, which I always kind of enjoy. Like, I find that sort of stuff amusing because it's, in my opinion, it's one of the more awkward things about interacting with people of the opposite gender. Is it's kind of like that. The idea is always to be sort of cautious. Like, you wanna convince the opposite gender that you're like clever and charming and suave, and you can't just walk up and be like, hey baby, you want to bang each other? Because that's very blunt. That's not very good. That's dumb. That's embarrassing. Everyone just feels embarrassed for you. So there's all kinds of like subtlety and nuance. And my favorite thing about sex humor is that you take that kind of subtlety and that nuance, and it's so easy to just derail that into like stupid, like a minor misunderstanding becomes like this whole thing. Like pretty soon you're wrapped up in like a gang doing some kind of heist because you kind of misunderstood the signals that you were trying to send each other. Like in Skyrim, Brynjolf walks up to you and he goes, hey baby, you didn't earn a single dime. Like, honestly, did you? And I was playing a female character when I first met Brynjolf in Skyrim, and I thought he was propositioning my character for sex. I thought he assumed that I was a prostitute, like that kind of thing. Like, he was trying to be subtle. He was trying to be like, hey, like you must be a thief, right? Like a fellow thief, huh? I thought he was saying like, hey, do you want to take your pants off? Like, do you want to hop into bed with me? I'll pay you 50 gold. Like, that's what it seemed like. He was trying to be subtle. So, yes, the subtleties of romance. You could get into that, and you could just be like, oh, hey, you haven't earned a single dime, honestly, have you? And you'd be like, oh, are you going to hire me to be a thief? Or it's like, well, I could use the money, yeah, like, I guess let's go to your room. Or like, yeah, meet me down in the cistern or whatever. And you're like, oh, man, the cistern. How much are you paying? Oh, 500 gold. Oh, 500 gold. oh, this is really shady, but okay. And then you go down there and find out it's like the secret underground guild, and you're like, oh. And they're like, yeah, this is our newest thief, Katia, in this case, since we're talking about prequel Katia. And you just be like, oh, oops, I was on really hard times and needed money. I thought we were going to have sex. I didn't realize we were robbing a bank. Oh, that's different. Robbing a bank is a higher level of illegal than having sex for money. So that's not a go to jail for a little while type of thing. That's a go to jail for a long while type of thing. So there's a lot of potential in Prequel. I mean, like looking at all the different guilds, like the Assassin's Guild and things like that. Prequel is all played kind of more from the perspective, not of the hero of Khajiit, which always I found amusing because in Oblivion you don't really save Khajiit. You kind of show up. You show up after the place is burned to the ground. But yeah, you're not really like the hero of Khajiit. It's not like Katia is running around and overpowering everybody, because in Oblivion, of course, like everyone was scaled to you, so there was really nobody. Like, anyone you were supposed to be fighting would never be too strong for you. Like, you should have theoretically been able to kill everybody you ran into without that much effort. But Katia, on the other hand, is just a common NPC. Like, she's, like, a lower level than the player character ever would have been. So, like, you know, somebody from the Assassin's Guild is a really big deal to her. Like, that's a person that kills for money. He'll just walk up and stab you in the liver, and then you just lie down on the floor and you bleed until you die. Like, you don't just turn around and be like, oh, like, I'm gonna chug a health potion and then stab you in the face. It doesn't happen. Doesn't happen for the normal NPCs. So I don't know. It's like taking that setting. Like I say, Oblivion, it had a less impressive setting. It was less interesting, I thought. Not as well written. But then using it well to actually make a story. And it's kind of like if Bethesda had more creativity, or possibly if maybe they just had to work with less content all at once. I mean, fairness words too. There's a lot of content in these games. You know, it's kind of like a look at like what could have been. You could have had these really interesting characters that might have been like a lot of fun, and you would have cared about them. There's a couple of different characters like Quillweave, who keeps giving Katia new chances, and it turns out that Quillweave is into girls, and so there are some people who have a theory that Quillweave, you know, maybe she doesn't really believe in Katia, but she thinks that Katia is cute. She kind of wants to sleep with her, so she kind of feels inclined to be nice, but maybe doesn't really want to get involved with Katia because she's like a little bit toxic. You know, it's one of those kind of things. It's like, oh, she's cute, and she showed up in my bed. Like, I let her sleep naked in my bed. Like, I don't know. There's some awkward humor about that whole kind of thing. Like, yeah. But anyway, though, Prequel, if you haven't read it yet, I give it a recommendation. I give it a strong recommendation. There's a bunch of animations. There's a bunch of really good stuff going on in it. It's really funny. It hasn't updated in a long time. Kaz right now is saying he's going to update soon, so maybe like next month or something like that. If we're lucky, we'll see some new updates. I don't know when he would update again after that. But for what it's worth, I mean, for the fact that it's kind of it's a work of passion, it's really good. It's a lot of fun. It's really good. You know, what can I say? The thing that prompted me to do this one was just somebody saw that I did that gift contest, and they were just like, oh, would you ever like talk about Prequel? And yes, I would. I don't know. I would talk about it. Like, I would just tell you the story of Prequel, but then I don't want to spoil it for you because some of the jokes aren't funny. If I just tell you the jokes, they're not as good. He's got good timing. Like, there's good setup. Like, he'll do a thing, and then he'll do you know, it's a bum bum bum, and it's funny. Like, they're good. He's got a lot of good funny jokes. So I don't want to give them away. I also don't want to give away. There's some roller coasters in there too, where you get your hopes up, and then you get your hopes down, then you get your hopes up, and you get your hopes smashed again. So there's ups and downs, and I don't want to ruin those for you either. I recommend you go check it out. If you already know about Prequel, then it's good. It's gonna update again soon, theoretically. So yeah, I suppose that'll be it for today. So thanks for joining me, everybody. I will catch you all next time.